title of this. It's okay. So today's presentation is titled Tailoring Contracts to Suit Your Business Needs, a Guide for Entrepreneurs. And the purpose behind this is just to give you kind of an overview of a lot of information that I've learned over the years, some tips, some tricks, and helping you negotiate your own contracts, because I know how expensive it is to hire an attorney or to even have an attorney work on your own staff full time. So this is kind of my way of giving back to show you that you don't always have to reach out and hire an attorney. There's some things you can actually do on your own, or at least start it on your own until you get to a place where you need to engage someone else with a little bit more knowledge. So, all right, we've already introduced me here. So like I said, the goals of this workshop today is to kind of navigate through the complexities of contracts and kind of let you be empowered to be able to tailor your own contracts and make sure they meet your business needs. I encourage everyone to participate. So it's a small group, and what I will be doing is I'll ask you some questions, and since it's so small, I don't have a problem with you unmuting yourselves. Because of the way my screens are set up, I can't see the chat nor your faces, so it'll probably be easier for people just to kind of unmute themselves and give their answers if you feel if you're willing to share. And I have to give you the legal disclaimer. The information provided during this presentation does not and is not intended or to constitute any type of legal advice. Instead, it's all informational content and materials, and everything's for your general information purposes only. And if you need legal help, please reach out to a lawyer within your state. All right, now that that's out of the way. So let's start with the first poll that I have here. I'm a little curious about, because I've heard a little bit about some of your businesses, about what type of contracts does your business typically sign? And, you know, like I said, you can feel free to just unmute yourself, or if you want to write in the chat. I need someone to volunteer to let me know what's in the chat.
I'm just starting out, but I will need contracts for coaching clients.
Okay, and you're coaching one-on-one?
Well, yes, one-on-one on relationships, yes.
Okay, and anyone else? I think I heard someone who was in here who was doing some, oops, what was that?
It was someone coming in a group.
Oh, okay, no problem. And I think sometimes, you know, I ask this question because it gives people an opportunity to start thinking proactive about their business and what they potentially need. And I think sometimes when we're going into business, we're focusing on that thing that we're passionate about, the thing we want to do, but we don't always think about what we need, what legal structures need to be set in place, and to make sure that, you know, their business is successful, right? We do a lot of these. I have this handshake picture here because we do a lot of these handshake deals. And then sometimes they work out and sometimes they don't. And so I try to start these presentations by letting people know that almost everything you do is a contract. A contract is just a, you know, it's a meeting of the minds. It's, you know, you you providing a service and someone paying for that service. You know, needing a product and someone, you know, giving you, providing that product for you. You sign contracts every day and that you don't even know about. And if you go to Walmart to go and purchase some food, if you go to a restaurant, if you're, you know, driving and you're using the toll roads, there's contracts that you're constantly signing. When you got onto Zoom today, you signed a contract with Zoom. To be part of this this webinar, you signed a contract with the organization. So there are a lot of contracts that are constantly going and running in the background, so to speak, of our lives. And I just want us to be a little bit more cognizant of the things that we're doing, that we're aware of and we're not aware of. So let's go to the second poll. So the second poll is, who negotiates your business contracts? Do you do it yourself? Or if you haven't gotten to the point where you're starting to write contracts, or you're just starting your business or thinking about your business, are you doing these contracts yourself? Are you finding a template online, sending it out to whoever you're performing services for, and having them sign it? Or are you Do you have someone that on your staff who is an attorney who you are, who hand that stuff off to? Or are you having to engage a law firm, an outside counsel to do this work for you when you're having these more complicated deals? So anyone want to share what their experience has been so far as who's actually negotiating these contracts for you?
At this point, my training program provides templates for contracts. So essentially I use their template and tweak it to fit. So I guess I'm doing my own negotiations.
Okay. And that's typically what a lot of people do. Anyone else?
Yep, I was saying mine is proposal-based type of contracts with like a terms of service attached to it kind of thing. It's not, super intricate because it's like, an understanding of what service you're going to get, because what I do is like a bunch of research and applications kind of stuff. So,
So you're negotiating yours as well?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone
And
else?
Lashonda, just to let you know, in the chat, Chanel said, I do reviewed by a friend who's an attorney. And then earlier when you asked about the types of contracts, Tamaya added an NDA.
Okay, good. So, all right. So we've got this should be very helpful to most of you since you're doing your own, right? All right, so let me go to the last poll here. Have you ever felt overwhelmed by contract negotiations? For those who've actually done them themselves.
Yeah, I would say absolutely.
Okay.
I would say no.
Oh, who said no?
No, too.
I need to bring you on my team.
So I said no. I'm not overwhelmed by contracts. One, I'm a realtor, so we have to do contracts for the homes. And then now with the business that I'm starting, I'm not overwhelmed by it. It's, I wanted to put in there, it was something, it was suggested by someone else that used these forms. So I paid maybe $300 for the form, but I did tweak it. I think everything should have an agreement, especially agreement between both parties. So even if now I'm doing retreats, I still think that just because you want to come to the retreat, you should sign a contract so that we both, I want to keep my business, that's all. So I'm not overwhelmed.
Okay, well, that's good to hear. All right, so let's get into some of this content now. So what is a contract? A contract is a legally binding agreement between two or more parties that's enforceable by law. So this means that once you enter into a contract, it's recognized by the law, and there's a set of promises between the parties where each has a right and a responsibility. So we've talked about this already. Contracts are basically the foundation to every business transaction that you're going to encounter. If you understand what constitutes a contract, and it's kind of your first step in leveraging them for your business advantage. So the more knowledge you have, the better. And hopefully some of the things that I'll discuss tonight will empower you with that leverage the next time you go and you negotiate a contract for yourself, especially if you're feeling a little anxious or, just don't want to deal with it, right? And understand that contracts are important because they provide security and clarity for all the parties involved, not just you. They should never be one-sided. And they ensure that, if something were to happen, I mean, basically the reason for a contract is to make sure if something happens, if there's a dispute, that there's a way for you to deal with it in a professional manner, and you're going to be dealing with it in a fair way. So let's go here to the second part. So when it comes to contracts, there are basic requirements to make a contract valid. And, these are things that most people don't realize are happening, but they're all happening together very quickly. But you must have all these 5 parts in order for a contract to be valid and to be enforceable by law. So there has to be an offer and an acceptance, right? And what I mean by this is basically there's a basic premise to any contract is that one party is going to propose something and then another party is going to agree. So for example, if I was offering to sell my car to Barbara for $5,000 and she accepts my offer, there we go. There's an offer and then she accepts it. So I'm offering for 500, she's accepting it for 5,000, she's accepting it for 5,000. That's a simple offer and acceptance. The next step is that there must be some consideration. So this means that there must be something of value given in exchange between the two parties involved. So this thing of value doesn't always have to be money. And a lot of times we think it has to be money, but we also know about the barter system, right? So there's other ways to have an exchange of consideration in a contract. It could be money, it could be services, it can even be an agreement to not do something. So if we look at the example we were talking about before, the consideration is the $5,000 that Barbara's going to pay me for the car, and then I transfer the car to her, right? So the next thing is mutual assent. So oftentimes this is referred to as the meeting of the minds. And I've said it before. And so this means that both parties understand and agree to the basic terms of the contract. So both parties must clearly understand what they're agreeing to. If both parties don't understand what they're agreeing to, then there's no meeting of the minds and the contract can't be valid because one party will have the upper hand over the other, if that makes sense. Next, there's capacity. So all parties must have the ability to enter into a contract. So basically, this means that you must be of a certain age. In the US, I believe every state in the US, you have to be at least 18 years old in order to enter into a contract by yourself for it to be valid, right? And then you also have to have the mental capacity to enter into a contract and understand what you're agreeing to. So for instance, like I said, a minor can't enter into a contract if they don't have someone else signing for them, right? If someone is mentally incapacitated, if they're in a coma, if they're having a mental episode where they may not be in a lucid state, they can't enter into agreement. And we see this sometimes when people are signing contesting wills, right? They'll say, well, you know, mom didn't sign, when she signed that will, she wasn't in her right mind. And that's what we mean by having the capacity to be able to sign a contract and understand what you're getting yourself into, and understanding the consequences of that contract too also is part of that mental capacity, that capacity to enter into a contract. And lastly is the most important thing is that legality. Contracts have to be for a legal purpose. So the law will not enforce a contract if it's for an illegal purpose or if it's something against a public policy. So if the contract's for the sale of illegal drugs, then it won't be valid, even if you have if 1 through 4 are, you know, if you have 1 through 4 and 1 through 4 valid, but it's for the sale of legal drugs or something that's illegal, it won't be enforced by the courts. All right, there we go. So there's a few misconceptions about contracts. Most people think that verbal agreements are not enforceable. Verbal agreements can be enforceable. We just say it from an attorney's perspective. We tell you, make sure everything's in writing. If it's in writing, then you have proof. If it's verbal, is one person's word against the other. So always get everything in writing. The next misconception is that all contracts must be in writing. And again, they don't have to be in writing, but we do advise that you put them in writing. And the last thing is that a contract may not be binding if it's deemed unfair or any element of it is missing. So again, you have to make sure that you need to be fair in contracting. You need to make sure that both parties understand what they're entering into in the contract, and they both have to be able to have that mental capacity to understand what the purpose of the contract is and what the risks are that are involved. And it sounds complicated, but when you get into some of these really bigger contracts, especially when you're dealing with let's say you're dealing with a government, you get a government contract and you have a subcontract from a government, it gets really, really complicated. You want to make sure that you're doing the right things and both parties understand exactly what they're getting into. So tonight, I don't know how far I'm going to get, but I have this acronym that I've created that is an acronym, is contract, that goes through the steps of some of the things that you would want to understand when you are actually creating your own contracts or negotiating your own contracts. And I'm going to start with C. So C is clarity in terms. So one thing that I find a lot, and even with people who are in business, and I've worked for some big companies, being very clear with your terms in your contract is literally the backbone of the contract. You must have precise language in these contracts. What happens is sometimes you're a salesperson maybe, or even you as a business owner, you may be rushed because the other side is telling you, look, we need this contract signed by 5 p.m. today, or you're going to lose this bid, or we're going to go to the next person, or the price is going to go up, right? Or the services are going to go away. So sometimes you feel that pressure, and you need to understand that when you are pressured, sometimes you find that you're not getting the clearest terms. You're leaving room for ambiguity, and which means that you're leaving room for yourself to risk entering into a contract that you may not benefit from. And they actually may turn on you, where you may end up owing them fees, or you may not get out of it exactly what there might be a misunderstanding, and you may not get exactly out of it what you intended in the first place. So what I would like you to do is think about a time when there was an ambiguous or unclear term in a conversation or an agreement, a contract. For those who haven't done contracts, you can just think of a conversation with a friend or a neighbor or a business partner. But think of a time where there was ambiguous or unclear terms that led to a misunderstanding or an unexpected outcome. And this could be, like I said, a business or personal situation. Is there anything that comes to mind to anyone, especially those who've already negotiated their contracts?
This is not a contract situation, but it was a team situation where I was leading 2 different groups, and they were working on a project. And one group was IT and one group was engineers. They were using the exact same terminology, but they were going back and forth and frowns on both sides. So finally I stopped them and said, okay, IT, tell me what it is you mean when you say X. Engineers, tell me what it is you think they mean when they say X. And they were like, oh man. And once we got a common language and got the terms defined, we proceeded very well with the project.
And thank you for sharing that. That's a very common thing. But when we think about even in our interpersonal relationships, that happens all the time, right? It's very easy to misunderstand someone else, what someone else is saying. And if most contracts start with a definition section because of this, because we want to make sure that we're on the same page, that we are we're speaking the same language, and we're pulling from the same definitions as well. So yeah, that's a very good example. And I kind of chuckle a little bit because that's usually my daily experience. A lot of what I do is just trying to have people figure out, how to speak to one another and speak the same language. So here's an example. Oh, go ahead, please.
I'm sorry, I was a wedding planner. So when the pandemic hit and we had brides, and our contracts allowed them, well, we say act of God. So when the pandemic hit, it was just so unclear if it was an act of God when it came down to them being able to reschedule their weddings with the venues. So a lot of venues had issues as far as negotiation, as far as allowing the brides to change their dates, how our service fees would change if we did. And a lot of us, particularly, I know for me, I had to refund a lot of brides because it did not fall under that act of God. So now we all went in and revamped our contracts, or prior to me leaving the industry, so that we include, in case another pandemic happens, we know how to proceed. And it's clearly defined because we weren't expecting anything like that to happen in the wedding industry. And so a lot of us were left like holding the bag in the rear because the contracts were not precise and clear.
That's unfortunate, and that happened to us, so many people, and
Yes.
small businesses to big businesses. I was working for, let's see, I won't say names. I was working for a huge pharmaceutical company that helped with the pandemic. We'll put it that way. And we had the same issues. And so that was one of the things that we did as well, is that we went through and we added to our force majeure clauses, which is the clause that says that if something happens that's not within your control, we've defined what that means. That's not within your control. that we will not be liable to refund your money, right? And so adding pandemic and epidemic, because there's some language barriers there. Some people saw COVID as an epidemic and some people saw it as a pandemic. And depending on what country you were from and who you were contracting with, you may put yourself in a sticky situation. So having both epidemic and pandemic, as well as acts of God and nature and government, government shutdowns or government rulings will also protect you as well. So, lots of lessons came out of that.
Yes.
So an easy example of vague and specific terms and contracts, something as simple as saying a timely manner, right? We just had an example of the two teams that were saying the same words, saying the same words, but not having the same definitions, right? So if I ask someone to perform a service in a timely manner, timely for me could be 2 days, timely for them could be 2 months. So we try to get these terms very specific in the contract. And sometimes, I mean, it may seem a little redundant, but it's better to be redundant than to have a third party, a judge or a mediator decide what you meant by timely manner. So more specific terms would be to say, we want this done within 30 days of receiving an invoice. That's very, very specific, right? Let's try something else. So here's an example of, there's an example of a situation where we have two parties who contract with one another. They have party A, says party A shall deliver the goods to party B in a timely manner, ensuring that the quality is satisfactory and meets the general standards of the industry. Payments shall be made by party B upon satisfactory completion of services. The services shall be performed regularly according to party B's needs. So again, feel free to unmute yourself. Can anyone point out where there may be some vague language that could be replaced in this little scenario here?
The general standards of the industry.
Okay.
That is so open-ended. And so who's standard? Who's the general? I mean, what's that?
So what would you replace that with?
Well, assuming it's some kind of manufacturing kind of place, there are something called the American Standards and something, ASTM, I think, or something. So that would be the standards of the industry, and I'd probably name the industry, not just say the industry. So yeah, that was very vague.
Yes, that's good. So let's say if it's an IT contract, we would say whatever the IT industry standards are, right? According to, this, for me, it'll be like, let's say the legal standards. So the legal body is the American Bar Association. I would say this should meet the American Bar Association's general standards as of the signing of this contract, right? So that we know that it's going to be the current standards, right? That's very specific, and then narrowed down a little bit more specific so people understand what we're talking about, and they have a source to figure out where those standards are coming from. Is anything else anyone sees in here that's a vague statement that we could replace?
Timely manner, you can put a specific time, 60 days, 30 days, whatever.
Very true. Very true. All right. So let's see. So there were a few here. Timely manner, satisfactory. We could change that as well to it could be a small tweak there. Satisfactory, we could change that to the quality is high, or the quality is per the American Bar Association's general standards, right? Here's again another one, satisfactory completion, and then regularly. This one, the services shall be performed regularly according to party B's needs. We don't know what regularly is, so we could easily change that to weekly, to monthly, to annually. But I hope you're seeing that it's really easy to slip in some general words and very vague words into these contracts, and then they'd be left up to an interpretation of each individual party once the contract is signed.
LaShonda, really quick, Felice had her hand up too, and I was actually going to ask about the word needs. I'm thinking about a client that we recently had where the line kept moving. And so as the deliverables were provided, they needed something else. And because the needs were not specified in the original agreement in terms of what they were looking for, that needs thing ended up being different every single
So that's
time.
Yeah, that's a good call out. Yeah, so needs is another one too. So when it comes to, calling out those deliverables in your contracts, being very specific. So deliverables in a contract are basically all the things that you're hiring this person to do. So let's say you're hiring someone to come into your home to, let's say you're hiring a consultant to come in and to do an audit of your department, of your company, right? Well, you would list all of the different parts of that audit that you need them to do, and any reports that they need to do, everything very, very detailed. Anything that you expect to receive from them, it should be listed out. And if there's a change, then now that change needs to be negotiated, right? The contract needs to be amended to change that. And that you go back to the drawing board again, you go back to the negotiation table and you negotiate what those changes will be. It's in the midst of things when the deadlines are moving all the time. Sometimes people they skip that process. And they just, we do these handshake deals again. It's like, okay, we need 2 more. We need 2 more weeks to send you these reports. We'll just give you 2 more weeks, right? The best thing is to make sure that you're very, very specific. And, I hate to use the word anal, but that's really what it is at some points. It's for some people, you just need to be very granular with what you expect, so that there's no way that the other party can say, well, you didn't say you needed that, or, oh, well, we're going to charge you extra for that. Oh, you didn't say you wanted that report. We charge extra for that report. That's not included in this. It is very easy for people to get into contracts and read into these vague statements that we put in. So what I would suggest everyone to do after tonight, like if you're in the midst of negotiating a contract, or if you already have contracts you've negotiated, pull them out, look through them, read through them again, and see, take a highlighter and try to find those vague words that are in your contract, and then go back and look at those highlighted, statements or words and see, well, okay, especially if you're having some issues with timelines or deadlines, if there's any issues that you're currently dealing with a contract situation, if you can relate it back to that vague term, you should call that person up and try to go back and renegotiate an amendment to the contract and make those terms more specific and hopefully favorable to you. All
I
right.
did have a question with the contract. You said about delivery, because we are in the virtual age, it should define, is this going to be a download? Is this going to be physical? And then with the goods, the specific goods, what type of goods? Is this a physical good? Is this a PDF good? And I think the other one was, oh goodness, I forgot, but those are the things that stuck out. Oh, the payment. Is this going to be mailed? Is this going to be Cash App, Vimeo, what type? And what was the other one I was going to say with the payments? Is this going to be a one-time payment? Is this going to be broken down in payments? And what is the penalty, or is there a penalty for paying late? Or do I get a discount if I pay early? So those are the other things that I saw.
Okay, who's speaking right now?
That was me, Felice.
Felice, okay. Felice, you brought up some really great things. So we're just gonna ignore the slide right now, and I'm gonna address everything you just said. So yeah, so let's start with being very, so you talked about delivery, right? So if it's going to be delivered by email or in person or by by UPS or FedEx, it's very, you need to make sure you decide what that's going to be. You have that discussion, but it's vague to say, oh, I'm just going to send an email, right? You also need to say, how is acceptance of that email going to be established? So if I were to send you, Felice, an email, there needs to be in the contract where there's proof that you've received that email. Just by me sending it isn't proof. So normally what happens with emails, we'll say in a contract that an email is considered delivered 2 days after it's sent, right? And that gives time for people to open up an email. And let's say if I haven't heard from you in 2 days, and now I can reach out to you and say, hey, Felice, have you seen my email? Did you receive it? The same thing with delivery. It might require you to have a signature, someone to sign it. It has to be delivered by certified mail. It may need to be stamped as well. As far as when you were talking about the cost, right? The fees. If there's going to be a penalty, those penalties need to be very specific, and they need to relate back to a specific service that wasn't delivered on time, or it may have to be a percentage of the fees paid. Like, it needs to be spelled out. I think the point here is to understand that you need to make sure that everything is very, very specific. And like I said, the easiest way to do that is to go through. I know no one really wants to read contracts. I don't even want to read them half the time, but to go through the contract and look through it and find those $1 words that are in there, those five, those simple words, those vague words, and tweak them and change them and make them more specific. Challenge yourself to make your contract terms more specific. There's always a way to make it more specific, so that you are making sure that you understand what you're getting into, and that, both sides understand the repercussions of not adhering to the obligations that they've signed up for it within the contract. Let's see, I think that was the two things that you discussed. Yeah, I think those, oh, it was also tying I think you talked about deliverables and tying the fees to the services. Did I miss that?
That was it. If there is a late fee,
Okay.
if there's do I get a discount if I pay early, in the increments of my payments? How does that work? Things like that.
Okay, yes, that's right. I remember now. It was the payment type, the type of payment, indicating how you will receive payment. And it's usually not an issue when you're dealing with a company that's also within the same state as you, so you're bound by the same law, same rules, or within the same country. But when you start, oh, I'm sorry, I got distracted. I saw someone was in law school briefly. Sorry for the flashback. But so when you start contracting with people and businesses outside of the US, that's when it gets really sticky. So a really quick example, I'm currently have a lot of international companies that I work with. And one of the companies happens to be in Egypt. So there's something going on within that country right now where they are locking down the dollar. So the dollar changes every day, unlike the US, right? So the dollar changes every day. The exchange rate changes every day. And because of that, it gets very problematic when you put in the contract, if your contract is based on US dollars, right? Or the contract is based on their dollars, because every single day the dollar will change. I always tell people, make sure you put your contracts as US dollars, because our dollar doesn't change. That's the first thing. The second thing is, like I said, right now I'm dealing with this Egyptian company, and they have a government contract, but they can't receive any funds. So they're unable to pay us from their own bank accounts, because there's an ordinance in their country that does not allow them to pay foreign countries right now as a individual company. So how do you get around that when you've already signed a contract with someone, right? So these are things that you have to contemplate sometimes, especially when you're dealing with companies that are outside of your own country. And that's why even I have to hire an outside law firm that's in Egypt just to help me understand what their rules and regulations are, because they're not the same as here. So it gets very tricky. This is why, a lawyer is, paramount, in these contract negotiations when you get to a certain level.
LaShonda, just from my own kind of knowledge, who has
Sure.
jurisdiction in that case? Like, if you had to take them to court, how would that play out?
So in this particular situation, normally what happens, the person with the bigger pockets usually has jurisdiction. That's usually how it wins out when we're battling jurisdiction within contracts. But you negotiate that in your contract. And, sometimes people don't realize how much power they have when they sit down at a negotiation table. Just because someone presents you a contract and they say that they want the jurisdiction to be in New York, you don't have to settle for that. You can say, no, I live in Florida. I want it in Florida. And they can come back and say, well, no, we want it in New York. And like, no, I want it in Florida. Well, then find a place in the middle, right? Normally New York okay, we got to take New York out this one, but normally Delaware is kind of like our neutral ground. Most companies, if you can't agree on the jurisdiction, the places, the laws and the rules that are going to govern this contract, most people will agree on Delaware and New York. I use New York as an example, but Delaware and New York are the two that they will agree on if they're both US companies. Now, if the company is a company outside the US, then it gets really sticky. So at that point, it just depends on what's being done. When I deal with contracts and if let's say I'm contracting with a government entity in another state, in another country, we always have to go with that government entity. So if I'm contracting with Egypt, the Egyptian government, it has to be governed by Egyptian law. Why? Because governments they have sovereign immunity normally, which means that they don't have a choice. They have to, all their contracts have to be governed by their country's laws or their state's laws. When I have contracts with if it's not a government contract, so let's say I'm contracting with any other company. So let's say that it's an AI company that's in China, right? Then I always push to have, the laws of the US governing the contract. Now, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Most of the time it depends upon the dollar amount of the contract. So if you're giving them enough money, they're willing to say, okay, and acquiesce and say, okay, we'll just use US laws. And then it also depends, another thing to look at too is the risk that's involved. So some contracts are less risky than others, right? Someone mentioned about having retreats. Well, there's certain things that may happen at a retreat, but it's a lower risk contract than, let's say, an IT contract dealing with AI and personal information and emails and social security numbers, right? There's a potential that there could be a breach. And there could be a leak, and that other company could leak out your customers, names, address, phone numbers, social security numbers, credit cards. That's a huge risk. And in those situations, you would want to make sure that whatever jurisdiction is favorable to you, you push for in that situation. Does that make sense?
Yeah, perfect sense. I was just wondering about international jurisdiction, but that answered it. Thank you.
Yeah, and just understand one thing that I learned too, the first thing I learned in contracts in my contract law class was that everything's negotiable. And of course, I was like, no, you're not right. Everything's not negotiable. If I walk into Walmart and they have a price tag on something and it says $5, I have to pay $5. And what I've learned is, no, I don't. That's what we talked about earlier, offer and acceptance. That $5 is an offer. I don't have to accept that. I can counter offer that. And that's something I would challenge you to do too. Anyone who has not negotiated a contract yet or feel a little angst about negotiating contracts, go into a store and negotiate down the price. Go to like a Best Buy, or go to, even if it means going to a flea market, right? It's easier there, right? Because they're ready and willing to do it there. But try to see how practice that negotiations, right? And see how the more and more you practice these things, the more comfortable you're going to be about asking for the things that you need and you want to protect your business. All right, let's see. I think it looks like we're only going to get through the C of the contracts today. So this has been really good though so far. And hopefully you've gained some insight, and there's been some things I've said that you'll be able to use. All right, so this is the poll here. Let's see. Which of the commonly used contract terms do you think most often leads to misunderstandings? So these are terms, we just looked at vague terms. So as soon as possible, fair, regular, substantial. Which one of these terms do you think it will lead to the most, will lead to misunderstandings in a contract the most?
Substantial.
Why do you think so?
Sorry, I done mute. Substantial is really in the eye of the beholder. My substantial could be 95%. Their substantial could be 75%. Somebody might even say less than 50 is considered substantial.
Exactly. And I see I can see a little bit of the chat now. I see that most people have said all of them, and that's absolutely right. Everything here is subjective. So that goes back to the point of just making sure that, there's nothing wrong with, and I think sometimes as women, we have a tendency to not want to negotiate, to not push back, to not ask questions. As business owners, women business owners, we have a little bit, we don't fall into that category as much. But, I always encourage people, ask questions. Even if you know the answer, always ask a question. That's something else that I was taught in law school too. You never ask a question that you don't know the answer to. So when you're sitting down at a negotiation table with somebody, you may know what they meant by substantial, but you make sure you ask them. You ask them, you notate it in the contract, and you hold them accountable for it. And usually that makes the contracting process and negotiation process fair to both parties. And it also gives you some instant credibility with the other side too, so they understand who they're dealing with. All right. So, well, I guess we actually have wrapped that up. I'm looking at the time, so I know I've literally run out of time here. And this is what I will, how about we do this? I want to stop the presentation now. And what I will do is I can take for like maybe, I guess I have about 5 minutes left maybe. I can take some questions.
LaShonda, if you're okay with it, we're at 7:40. We can stretch it to about 10:15.
Oh, okay. Okay.
If that's okay with you? Okay.
Yeah, let me, did I stop sharing? I think I did. Yeah, I did. Let me get it back. I don't have
This
my
is really good information. I think I'm looking at it for myself, but I think everyone else is benefiting as well. Really good.
All right, let me see. I got you there. Now let me get the thing on the screen again. All right, there we go. All right, let me get you back. It's back on the right page. All right, there we go. We're getting there. And I'll provide this, I'll provide the, where is it at? I'll provide the contract acronym that I have. I'll provide that form, that sheet to everyone too afterwards. All right, so the C for contracts, obligations and rights. So obligation and rights, every contract outlines what each party is obligated to do and what rights they possess. So getting a clear grasp of these aspects is crucial in enforcing these agreements and ensuring that both parties meet their commitments. So most of the time people are like, well, isn't an obligation a right? What's the difference? So an obligation refers to the duties that a party is bound to perform as agreed upon in the contract. And the rights in the contract are legal entitlements that that contract grants the parties. So it's vital to clearly find these things in the agreement so that you understand the difference and make sure the expectations are met. So let's look at an example here. So in a service agreement, so service agreements could be like mostly like a consulting agreement, or it's where some service is provided. It could be that someone is coming in to paint your house, someone's coming in to, you know, create a slide deck for you, you're hiring someone to an attorney to actually to write a template of a contract for you. So those are the service agreements. So an obligation in a service agreement, a provider, well, I'll use the word provider here. So a provider's obligation might be to deliver a service by a specific date, while their rights might be to receive timely payment upon the completion. So understanding these examples are going to help us better identify and articulate like the obligations and rights in your own contracts. So let's look at an example here. All right, let me give you, I think that's another example. Okay, so here's an employment contract example. So the obligation is the employee is obligated to perform their duties as described in the job description and adhere to company policies. That's what you expect when you're hired as an employee. The employee has the right to be paid the agreed upon salary and receive the benefits that the company has offered them when they accepted the job. So this example, it shows you that rights and obligations there are different types of rights and obligations depending on the types of contracts you have. So is there any confusion between the difference between the obligations and the rights in the contracts? Or, well, let me see. Let me see if I think I have another example. How about we do this? So let's do this. Let's think of a time when there was a misunderstanding of a right or obligation in a contract that led to a problem in your business. So we just described two different contracts. We described an employment contract where the employee is hired and the obligation once they were hired, their obligation is to abide by the rules, right? To do the work, abide by the company rules. The rights that they are entitled to is that they're going to get paid and they're going to get their benefits, right? So is there an example that anyone may have that they can share that we can kind of discuss and kind of figure out, okay, were there rights and obligations that may have been an issue and how were they solved, or how could they potentially have been solved? Or if there are any questions, because I kind of went through that really quickly. All right, did I lose everyone?
We're here. I'm here.
Yeah, I think everyone is just quiet.
Yeah, we're just processing all the good information.
It's hard for me because I don't see you all. So like, I don't know. Did my internet go out? Maybe it's
So from a wedding planning standpoint, like I'm obligated, of course, to plan your wedding, to handle the logistics. Not obligated to contact your wedding party though. I think that's where. So like my contracts are very specific for that. Like I don't. That's the difference between the obligation and the right for me. Like I'm not obligated to. I'm obligated to handle the logistics, but outside of that, I'm not responsible for. So like in one of my clauses, I don't interact or do business with wedding vendors that are not licensed. I don't transport, I don't touch, if you're dealing with a vendor and they're not a licensed caterer, I don't touch or I don't have anything to do with the logistics of the food because I can't be responsible for it. I don't transport anything of value or like random questions that people ask. Can you pick up my cake? No. Like, so I'm in learning that process. I tend to like modify my contracts when I was doing weddings, every contract, because I'm learning. Because if not, I'm transporting a cake. If not, I'm handling logistics of why didn't the caterer show up on time, or someone being sick because food was served. All of that falls on me. So I had to change my obligations and rights when it comes down to the specifics, what I'm obligated to do and what I'll do extra, or what I won't do extra. It varies. I'm gonna say that, but I will change my contract. I find myself doing it every wedding according to the type of wedding that I'm dealing with.
And who is this speaking?
Lindsay.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing, because that brings up a really good point about, it brings up a good point about third parties in contracts, right? So if your contract, if a bride comes to you and they are contracting for you to, what are your services?
A wedding planner.
Wedding planning. Okay, so they come to you just for wedding planning services, right?
Yes.
And people who are not in the wedding planning business may not understand what that entails and what it doesn't, right? They may think it's everything. And so if you've been very specific about what you will provide them and what you don't provide, that's key. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, you mentioned about, okay, well, what they want me to pick up the cake, or they want me to, deliver, maybe they want me to pick up the, be there to receive the flowers when the florist comes, right? So it's key to understand, be able to draw the line in the sand of what you are willing to do in a contract and what you're not. That's why it's so important to make sure that the language is not vague, that the language is very specific. And another part of that too is making sure that you have insurance, right?
Yes.
Because what happens is, when these obligations and rights kind of merge and the language is vague and something happens and all of a sudden, you're the one holding the ball, how are you going to be able to, you want to make sure that you have some protection. And what I find is, my little hobby usually is to help people. I've for years, I've helped people kind of go from this thought in their head and this passion project that they had in their head, and be able to help them start their business and create a business for themselves. But what happens is, most people who start businesses don't have a lot of funding in the beginning, and they don't have a lot of startup money. So they are using it, in the way that they think is right. And so they skip and skimp on things. One thing they usually skimp on is they don't register their business with the state, right? Another thing they skip on is that they don't get insurance. And those are the two things that are going to legally protect you personally, to make sure that if you get into a situation where someone is suing you because they're saying that you didn't fulfill the rights or their obligations within the contract, you have a safety net. You have two safety nets. If your business is legally registered in the state, then now that person can't come after you personally. You feel you can sleep at night knowing that no one's going to come after your car and your house, right? And everything in your personal bank account. And secondly, if you have insurance, you can sleep much deeper and better, because now you have some third party who has insured you, who said, hey, if someone sues you, we'll pay up to this amount of money if you're at fault. So it gives you that assurance there too. But again, when people are starting out in business, to no fault of our own, we're just trying to make the money and establish a name and do the right thing, and go out and share these gifts and passions that we have with the world. Sometimes we forget about the basics. And the basics are the things that will really put you in a situation where you will be worse off. You can potentially be worse off by being in business than not being in business. Was there a hand? Okay. All right, let's see. All right, so which aspects of obligations and rights do you find most challenging to negotiate in contracts? So do you find it most challenging to define the obligations, understanding the legal jargon, ensuring rights are protected, or there's something else that you find that's challenging in in contracts?
LaShonda, I think I would say Probably it would be C, and it had really more to do with what you were talking about, defining the terms between two parties. Because what I feel like this means, like you're talking about, fair and, you know, a substantial, right? That's what they might mean totally different. So really, I almost feel like based on this presentation, which thank you for this, there needs to be like a pre-meeting before we close, which is defining terms so that it's very clear before we even like sign contracts, right?
Yes, yes. And that's, you know, that's a big thing with, so legal jargon, I always, when I have conversations with people about contracts, I equate it to, you know, reading the Bible. You know, when people are newly, you know, when they're first, you know, introduced to the Bible, they see it as this foreign language and they go into it like, I don't understand it. I don't, you know, I can't relate to the people in the Bible. I don't understand these words. I don't know what they mean. It's foreign to me. And it's kind of the same way when you're dealing with contracts. It's a different language. And if you go into any situation thinking that I'm not going to understand, guess what? You're not going to understand. And so, you know, that means, from my perspective, that means that, you know, a lot of people are skipping on having contracts because they don't understand it. And they're like, oh, let's just get the business done. Let's just get the money, right? So they're putting themselves at risk. Or they are signing these, they're allowing the other party to send them a contract and they just sign it because they just want to get the deal done, putting themselves at risk again. Or they're trying to do it themselves. They're going online, they're grabbing templates. There's nothing wrong with that. I say it's better to grab a template online and have something in writing than nothing. But what you'll find is every state is different. The laws are different in every state. The rules and procedures are different in every state. And every industry has different standards. So you need somebody in the beginning stages. You need somebody, you know, kind of like me, who's going to come in and try to teach you some of the basics. And so you understand what contracts are, you know, how to formulate or how to negotiate these contracts. You need someone to educate you on the basics. And then you also need someone, an attorney or a paralegal or somebody to go in and actually create a personalized contract for you. And there's nothing wrong if someone who's performing the same services, if you're, you know, for example, you know, if you're a wedding planner, well, you're going to be performing basically the same type of services to every client that comes your way, right? There's nothing wrong with, you know, spending a little money up front, getting an attorney to write you a template for a, you know, consulting or a service agreement for wedding planning. And then part of them creating that template, you know, and this is a big tip for most people, because most people will just go out and they'll get the template, they'll pay for the template, and then they miss the big part. The big part is making sure they have a template, but also having that attorney or whoever's creating that a template for you, give you instructions, right? So there should be notes, or what do you call it? Like comments. There, if it's a Word document, there should be comments at every, you know, section of the contract, giving you some examples of what you should be doing. You know, what if the other, we talked about jurisdiction before, right? We talked about what laws are going to what laws should be in place for this particular contract. If you're saying New York in your template and then you send it out to the other side and they're like, nope, we don't want New York, we want California, the attorney who is creating that template for you should have a little note for you that says, hey, if they come back and they just say that they don't want to have New York and they suggest another jurisdiction, here's your rebuttal, here's your counter offer. This is what you should do. If you're going to pay them to do a template for you, you need to make sure you pay them to tell you, to give you that advice as well, right? Because it doesn't do you any good, because you're going to be stuck if you just have a template. And it's going to be very frustrating trying to negotiate those first few ones on your own without that advice and that help from them. Yeah, so I think we might actually be at the end of our time now.
Oh, are we open for questions? Because I do have one regarding something you said. Is it okay for me to ask?
It's up to the host.
Sure, we can take one. Yep.
Okay, thank you, thank you. So you mentioned I am a life coach and I use a coaching agreement, and something that you said was that I can coach across the country. But I'm concerned about what you said about each state has a different, you know, legal parameters or something. Is there something that I should consider if I'm using a contract, the same contract, with someone that lives in Georgia as opposed to someone that lives in California?
So I'll answer your question specifically, and then I'll give a general answer. So for you, no, your contract, if as long as you're using your contract, and your contract, let's say, what state are you in?
I'm in Georgia.
Okay, so if your contract, your template that you use, your contract says that the laws of Georgia are going to govern this contract, then
Okay.
you're fine. If there's a dispute that happens, it's Georgia. Now, if you negotiate with someone, let's say I decide I want to be one of your clients, right?
Yes.
I'm not accepting Georgia. I'll tell you right now, I'm not doing that, right?
Okay.
So if I change it to, let's say I change it to Delaware, then yeah, you should probably look into what the Delaware laws are for disputing a contract, right? And you should have a document, let's say like an Excel sheet, where you're keeping track of these things, because it's imperative when it comes down to, if something were to happen, right? I wouldn't worry too much because of the nature of what you're doing. Now, the general answer is, let's say you were a physician, let's say you were a psychologist, right, or a therapist, and that changes things because now you have a governing body
Right.
that
Licensed.
what you're doing. So in that case, yeah, you'll need to know every state, and I'd be a little bit more worried and I would want a whole lot more insurance, right?
Yeah, you can't, yeah, right. You have to be licensed in the state to practice therapy and all that stuff. But with coaching, it's, yeah. Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. So the short answer, but to kind of sum that up, you're not concerned about who the person you're contracting with. You're not concerned about where they are. Your only concern is what your contract actually says.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
No, sir. No, sir.
I think that's okay. LaShonda, thank you so much. I cannot stress enough how important I think this information is. LaShonda, as you asked that last question, I thought about a client that I had when I was doing more consulting where we didn't specify the terms, and she literally came back to me 2 years later and wanted a revision to some work that we did. And she had screenshots and copies of the original contract. And she said, well, this doesn't specify an end date. And so ethically, I felt responsible, to provide what she asked. But it really is, everything's not going to happen quite like that. But I think all the information that LaShonda gave and she's recommending is really for our protection, just because we work hard, and we don't know how someone else is interpreting the nuance and, all that other stuff. So if we can apply what she said, I think we'll be in a much better position and work smarter, not necessarily just harder. So thank you, LaShonda. This was great. Yeah. So I know this is a packed presentation. I think we'll have to revisit these two topics and make them separate sessions because I feel bad. There's so much more I think that we can learn from LaShonda. But we do have one more expert that's going to share for the last hour of this meeting tonight. And they're kind of related. We have Kamaya, who's going to, and forgive me, Kamaya Johnson. I hope I'm saying it right. But she's going to share some tax tips for us. We know that April 15th just passed for our own personal filings, but she's actually going to share some strategies and some tips for business owners as well. But we're going to give a 5-minute break. So if you need to run to the restroom, grab a snack, whatever you need to do, we'll give about 5 minutes. And at 8:05, Kamaya Johnson is going to come up and share some of her tips for us. So thank you, ladies. And LaShonda, do you have a slide with your contact or your handles?
I was just about to tell you. Let me just put that up while everybody's on break.
Sure.
And yeah.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
This was perfect.
This is really good info. Thank you again.
Thank you. I'm always like, I always think that nobody wants to know about contracts. So
No.
happy when
Yeah.
people are like, okay, we see the benefit.
Oh, yeah.
I can get to the last page here.
Yeah, and it's a headache when the dispute, like the person who has the dispute is in the right because you didn't protect yourself. I have a tenant now who, I mean, screenshots for days, and she'll say things like, well, this doesn't say this and this doesn't say this. And I have to kind of just, you're right. And just take the loss. So it's
Yeah.
good.
All right. Everybody might want to close their eyes because they're gonna get a little dizzy. I still can't figure out how to just get to the page I need. Oh, let's see. There we go.
Elijah, did you have violin? Huh? Can you play a violin? Huh? Elijah. No, sir. Come and get your thing.
Okay, that was a really quick 5 minutes. but I want to make sure that we get enough information from Kamaya as well. LaShonda, thank you again. And I don't know if you mentioned this, but if someone here is interested in working with you or would like to learn more, what's the best way to do that? I might have missed it.
Oh, the best way to do it, I'll put the information in the chat. I encourage everyone to connect with me on LinkedIn. And I have a whole series that I've been doing on contracts for, I think I'm on what's day 45, but I have 90 days worth of just daily tips on contracts. So yeah, definitely to look at that, but I'll put the information in the chat.
Okay, thank you again.
Thank you.
Oh, before I turn it over to Kamaya, just a couple of quick reminders. I know we have a few people here that are new to MCWEN. We do these virtual offerings every other month as a way to connect with our wider audience. But then every other month, we have in-person meetups at the 15 cities that we're in. Most of the time, we have them at all 15. And so we have that coming up in May. They're all on the third week of the month. Some fall on the same day. A couple of them will fall on the same day, but all of them happen the third week. So you can find those dates on our website. We also have our second largest event happening next month, which is our Spring Expo in Charlotte, North Carolina. So if you are nearby, you're welcome. Tickets are free to everyone. And if you're a member, there are discounts for vendor tables. And then we have our conference that's coming up August 16th and 17th. And then last reminder is typically as a thank you for attending tonight's session, if you would like to become a part of the MCWEN community, this is a code that you can use. This month is April 24 to get 30% off membership, any level of membership for 48 hours. And all of these offerings are free to you or complimentary to you when you become a MCWEN member. So our next speaker is Kamaya Johnson. And Kamaya Johnson is a tax professional with several years of experience, federally qualified to prepare taxes for all 50 states, specializing in doing taxes for business owners. She is passionate about serving her clients and community as unto the Lord, and we love that. She is a preparer at Easy File Now that specializes in tax preparation, tax planning, credit, business funding, and bookkeeping. And we learned today that Kamaya is also a new mom. So Kamaya, thank you so much for making time to hang out with us and to share some of this information. We appreciate it, and I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited. I hope y'all still got some energy. If y'all still with me, please drop a 1 in the chat. Okay. I know it's late, but
We with you.
Y'all are the responsible business owners here, like educating yourselves. You know, we've gone past the point of just wanting to party, right? And just want to we want to have fun, but when it's time to really get the information, it's good to know that there's a group of y'all that are really dedicated to it, and that's what we're here about, right? And so again, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I just want to thank MCWEN. This is my first meeting, and I'm excited to I want to invest in the membership. Just because I've been looking for this. I've been in a Facebook group probably for like years, but you know, when you finally, like I said, get serious, I'm like, okay, let me get serious and get a membership, and let me, let me do all the right things I'm supposed to do that I already know I'm supposed to do. So thank y'all again for having me. Let me share my screen real quick here, and then we'll get started. And yes, I am a new mom. So I'm excited just to let y'all know the Lord has been good to me, and I can't deny it. I can't sit here and act like that's not the truth. So I just want to give the Lord praise for what he's doing. And let's get this party started. Okay. All right. All right. Well, thank you again for having me here. My name is Kamaya Johnson. We are going to be going over some 10 tax strategies for businesses. And it's going to be pretty informative. I hope y'all get y'all pens and papers out. I plan on, definitely it's going to be interactive. We're going to talk about what we need to do to try to lower our tax liability as business owners. And we're gonna just give some, I'm gonna give some very practical tips and stuff, but we're gonna get into some information. This is just a little overview. We can skip that for now, but again, hi, my name is Kamaya, like a papaya. You'll never forget it, right? I'm Kamaya, I'm a tax professional, as you were saying. I have several years of experience, not only in the tax industry, but also in insurance. And so that's helped me merge the two worlds, and I understand the importance of why we need to get our finances in order as business owners. Federally qualified to be able to prepare in all 50 states. I'm part of the Easy File Now family, and we offer everything from tax preparation, planning. I forgot to say tax resolution. That's a really big one. Credit, business funding, and bookkeeping, which is things all business owners need. Just like the lovely LaShandra was talking about, even when we were talking about contracts, insurance, a lot of these things do merge themselves together. And so let's get right into the good information. So we're going to start with some facts. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but 1 in 4 small business owners do not know how to file taxes. That's really scary, but it's very true. Okay, it's a truth. We're going to be facing facts today. I have my chat up. Type a 2 in the chat if you knew this. If you didn't know this, I'll say this. If you did not know that 1 in 4 business owners actually don't know how to file taxes, drop a 2. Drop a 2 for me. Make sure y'all wait. Y'all gonna be engaging with me today, because we're gonna get to really good information. I only got 2 people. Okay, y'all probably not surprised then. All right. How about this one? 1 in 3 small business owners do not know if they had to pay taxes. So that's pretty substantial, y'all. That's really bad. And that's why I said we're a family here. I feel I'm part of the family. We can be transparent. That's some of y'all in this room that y'all know this is true. You're like, man, I don't know how to file taxes. I don't know if I owe. I don't know if I'm supposed to pay. I mean, it's just real. Especially new business owners. How are you? You're not gonna expect it. You're not expected to know everything automatically. So that's why we're doing these presentations like here. And I'm thankful again to be able to present and give y'all the tea, so y'all know exactly what we need to do to get up to par. And let's go with the third fact. 37% of small business owners struggle with tax anxiety and confusion. Man, that's still a big number. So that was as of 2023. We know the economy's changed in the past year. So I'm pretty sure that number is going up. But I'm here to give you a 4th fact. The Bible says, but through knowledge shall the just be delivered. Okay? Through knowledge. And I want to add, not to add to the Bible, but applying that knowledge. That's wisdom. Knowing how to apply it. That's what wisdom is. And so that's what I'm here to talk to you about today. Because what's happening is a lot of us, we want to do the right thing, right? We're not trying to evade paying taxes. We're not trying to be like, oh, what's his name? They're about to get out. What is his name? They had like the little reality show. I'm pretty sure y'all know who I'm talking about. Like a white man, his family. Basically, they were evading taxes for years and they're in jail. Nobody's trying to go to jail, right? Especially as minority Christian businesswomen, we're not trying to do that. We're trying to do the right thing. No, it wasn't Trump. It was this guy who's a reality show host. He's very funny. Him and his family. I'm telling you, if y'all see this, he has like all this Botox. That's him. Todd, thank you. Okay, y'all. Yes, the Christies. Yeah, they're just about to get out. Okay, I love that show, by the way, but that was back in the day. They're just now about to get out from tax evasion or tax issues and all. We're not trying to do that. So, but if you feel that anxiety, confusion, we know as believers that is not of God, right? That's not of Christ. And that's what the devil plays on, is our lack of knowledge. And so a lot of us, we just file through TurboTax and we hope and wish the best. TurboTax doesn't even put all of the deductions and credits that you can get. It's just not built for that. It's built for the everyday single filer, sometimes joint married filer, but it's just the basic software that anybody could use. But we're going to talk about some tax strategies, plans to help you all. So I know it's gonna be, I'm gonna tell you, it's gonna be a lot of information. Feel free to screenshot all of this. You know, I mean, there's only so many notes you can take, but we're here to bring some deliverance today, okay, through knowledge. So I'm excited. Thank you again for having me here. So my question is, for any of you, do you have a tax strategy? If you have a tax strategy, drop a 1. I want to see who I'm talking to today. Okay, I got 1. How many people we got on here? I can't, let me see.
About 17.
Ooh, okay. We got 2 people, twice 17. That's normal. Don't feel bad. 3 people, okay. That's about right. That's not bad at all. And I'm actually proud that we have that many. Most time it's probably like one person. But the difference between just doing taxes and having a strategy is setting yourself up to have the lowest liability or owe nothing at the end of the year. That's the goal. I don't know if you know this, but as a business owner, small business owner specifically, you are required to pay taxes. A lot of people don't, like I said, a lot of people don't even know this. 1 in 4 don't even know they're supposed to file. Yes, you are required to pay taxes. And I'm talking about, and I'm going to give you another tidbit. If you're considered self-employed, just because you haven't gotten an LLC yet, does not mean that the IRS doesn't see you as a business owner. And let me explain. If you made over $400 in your passion project, like my sister said, the IRS sees you as a business. Okay? They see you as a business. Now, understand if you don't have records, sometimes you don't have records, sometimes things happen. But for all those that, once you get your LLC though, if you are registered, it's definitely not, like it's definitely time to not play games. You don't want to play with your LLC. All right, it's not the time to play. So if you, or your S Corp or your C Corp, we'll talk a little bit about that too. But you are going to be owing more likely than getting back as the economy is changing and the tax brackets are changing and the tax laws. It's getting more. I mean, I'll say this: with the right strategy, you can actually get a return, like get a refund. But without strategy, just know, just go ahead and put in your head, I'm going to be on the government. Just go ahead and put in your head, you're going to owe. So we're going to talk about 10 ways how we can lower your liability, maybe even get you over it. I was able to get several of my clients over the hump to where they didn't owe, or they were able to get a nice refund because they used tax strategies. So let's get into it. All right, the first one, we're gonna talk about, like I said, you can screenshot these slides. Just gonna make things a lot better. If you're still with me, drop a 1 in the chat. I see a little bit of movement. I just want to see some more 1s. Make sure that I'm talking to the people. Everybody's awake. All right, awesome. Okay, perfect. Perfect. All right, the first one is utilizing tax advantage retirement plans. So a lot of you are not full-time entrepreneurs, and that's perfectly fine. And this is some information that's pretty wide known about the 401k. I'm not going to explain what a 401k is. A lot of y'all know what that is. IRAs, same thing. They help reduce your taxable income. All right. But then there's something called SEP, or Simplified Employee Pension IRAs. These are retirement plans for self-employed individuals or small business owners, allowing them to contribute a percentage of their income in retirement. So you can actually start, like, be your own boss. Like we talk about being bosses, right? But you can really pay yourself and get yourself a pension. Wouldn't that be nice, right? Make yourself a worker of the business. And that's something also that I'm trying not to go too deep. I only got so much amount of time, but that's something that a lot of you need to look into. I want y'all to look into, write down your notes, getting a drawer's check. I have several business owners. What they do is they spend all the money the business makes. Hey, that's your business, that's your prerogative, like Bobby Brown says, or whatever. But if you want to lower your tax liability, make yourself an employee of the business, and you're only paying yourself maybe 30 to 50% of the income that your business makes, and you're reinvesting the rest. That's going to help you a lot. Okay. Why? Because you're going to have, first of all, you're going to force yourself to make more money because you're not spending all your money. Your business is going to also grow when you do that. Just because it's going to force you to make more money because you're going to be used to the salary that if your business makes 10K a month and you start doing that, you break it down. Okay, I'm only going to give myself 5K. You're going to force yourself to make more money, but that's going to grow your business. Little added tip. Okay. So that's the first one, using tax advantage retirement plans. I didn't put all of them, but you can also look at things like getting an index fixed universal life plan, getting index funds. Your money will go in tax-free. It'll stay tax-free when you pull it out. So an index fund, an IUL. All right, number 2, taking advantage of deductions. A lot of people, you already know what deductions are, but there's so many things that you can write off as a small business owner. We talk about office supplies, equipment. Okay, travel. A lot of y'all are traveling. You're traveling for these conferences. Okay. If you're traveling for these conferences, as y'all know y'all like to do, right? Going from workshop to workshop, conference to conference, retreat, all those things, the lodging, the airfare, meals, transportation. I don't know about y'all, I love to eat. I'm from Houston. I'm actually from Louisiana, so I really love to eat. Okay, all that can be written off. Client entertainment. Some of y'all love to serve. I love serving. I like give my clients some like little freebies, send them something, little gift basket, whatever, right? Okay. And whether you knew it or not, you can look at getting that money back. So what we're gonna do, if I actually remind me, because I'll forget, I have mommy brain really bad, God help me, but I have a whole spreadsheet of the different type of write-offs that y'all can do. Like different types of write-offs that y'all can start. Basically, y'all can use the spreadsheet for your business, honestly. It's by Square Up app, by the payment processor. Square is very, very good. I love it. It has a reference guide. I'm talking about it's very, very detailed of every type of write-off, but you got to take advantage of the deductions. One, literally I had a client, and it was just like one travel ticket they actually remembered to give me, and it was the difference between them owing and actually getting a refund. So as y'all are building up, and some of y'all need to just actually incur more expenses. Don't be don't be a stingy business owner, right? Y'all need to be paying some money. Y'all need to be buying some courses. Y'all need to be hiring some coaching, because those things are going to help lower your tax liability over the course of time. Plus, that's personal development. That's investment that you should look into doing. Okay, that's the second thing. Okay, number 2, you want to claim this, and it's a 179 deduction. That's a very specific one. It allows businesses to deduct the full purchase price of qualifying assets. So an asset, what they talk about is equipment and machinery. Some of y'all have warehouses, if you have inventory, but this is for the first year. When you first get it, you basically want to accelerate the depreciation of what that would be. And this could actually provide significant tax savings, because instead of chunking it down a little bit at a time, like I said, if you spent maybe 4 figures on a piece of equipment, you could look at probably getting a lot of that back. It's just not going to be long term. It's not going to really make that difference in what you owe if you're just going to depreciate over time. Go ahead. If you buy that equipment this year, some of y'all that might be a strategy that we look to implement. You need new office equipment, or you need presentation. If you're into content creation, you need to go buy, the high dollar cameras and lighting and all that. You need to go ahead and do that, and then we get that written off for you. Okay. Oh, I love this one. All right. Now we're on number 4, hiring your family. Now I know a lot of y'all hate it. Look, I see Andrina like, she's shaking her head, baby. She said, I'm not hiring my family. Look, I agree with you. I would just hire my new baby girl. That's the only one I would hire. And I love my husband too. I wouldn't hire him either. Just saying. But it would probably just be her. But if y'all got kids, I have a good friend in business. That's what she does. It's a good idea. Get them to actually do some work. Okay, they got to actually do some work. So whether that's being your assistant, they getting you coffee every 30 minutes to an hour. They're going to go pick up your inventory, whatever that is. It's actually going to help you because this is going to be something you can deduct from them. Okay. Okay, I'm trying to answer. Let me see. I see a question in the chat. Feel free to come off mute. Y'all can interrupt me.
It's Paula.
Hey,
I was
Paula.
asking, how much do we have to pay them? My husband handles all my travels. So how much would I have to pay him?
Well,
be legit?
Okay, let's talk about reasonable. Okay, where's Lashandra at? What does that mean? At least minimum wage, right? We don't want to, at least you want to talk about minimum wage. Now, minimum wage, I would say we're not going with this. What is it, still $7.25? I can't
It's
even.
$15 where I am.
Right, it is 15 where you are. I said some places it's still $7.25. That's ungodly. That's really ungodly. All right. But yeah, if it's 15, which this should be, pay that man 15. Okay. And then if you're married, that's even better. I actually had a couple, that's what they did. One was the business owner, one was getting they add an actual check from the business. And guess what? That's more income that they were able to get a refund basically. Because it was all in one household. They already were paying the taxes. So you just got to get with us. You know, we'll talk more about that later. But yeah, reasonable. Don't be just throwing them a couple $100 every here and there. Try to make it make sense. Okay, did that answer your question, Paula?
Yes, it does. Thanks.
All right, perfect. Okay, I think we're halfway through. All right, now this is real good. And a lot of y'all might not have a lot of employees, but if you have a virtual assistant, at least one or two, right? Great idea to have an established health savings account or a flexible spending account. Okay, so I'm going to break it down a little bit. This allows your employees to contribute pre-tax dollars to accounts used for qualified medical expenses. This reduces taxable income by both the employee and the business. So it's you offering them a health savings plan. Hey man, America is trying to kill us. Okay, FDA, I'm just letting y'all know. Like, we ain't getting healthy as a country. So you offering this is gonna be good in the best way. We thank God that we're getting better. We're speaking that. But you wanna make sure that you are just giving them some benefits. And so they have some of these kind of, I'll say a la carte services. You can just search, you can get these added onto your business. And it'll really help you because you're offering a benefit to them. And obviously it's benefiting your employee as well. Okay, y'all still with me? We're halfway through. See if y'all rocking with me. I need some, we're gonna do another one since y'all been doing all the ones. Let's get a 5. We halfway through. Drop a 5 in the chat. You still with me? Awesome. Okay. All right. I need one more 5. I only seen like 4. Okay, good. All right. All right. Perfect. All right, now this is a big one. I really want to, we're going too fast. All right, slow down. Now, this is a big one that a lot of us are not utilizing, and it's considering the entity structure. If you already have your LLC, you can look at how to get taxed as an S Corp, a C Corp. And especially I know with S Corps, a lot of times they save a couple, I'll say, so give you on average, if a company makes $100,000 a year, if they elect to be taxed as an S Corp, they're actually going to be saving almost $6,000 of the tax liability. Some of y'all, that's exactly what y'all needed. That's exactly what y'all owed at $6,000. So this is something you want to look at with your accountant, with your tax planner, to be able to mitigate, because look, let's be real. We all work hard year round. Nobody wants to give their money to the government at the end of the day. It's just what it is. So that's why we're trying to help limit these things. We're trying to get rid of what we're talking about, anxiety and confusion through knowledge. But we need that knowledge to be applied. So, like I said, definitely screenshot this. Definitely screenshot this, okay? It definitely is gonna reduce the overall taxable income. And I'm saying, just to give you an idea, someone makes about $100,000, they're saving almost $6,000 worth of their tax liability, which is big. Okay. All right, let's continue.
Tamaya, really quick,
Yeah.
what about nonprofits? Anyone here that might have a nonprofit structure? Do you have any suggestions in
Yeah,
terms
so
of leveraging the
nonprofits,
structure?
yeah, I would say nonprofits. So nonprofits, they are very different. Now, I would say for someone that's having a nonprofit, does anyone have a nonprofit? I just want to see. Anybody? No?
Oh, maybe it's not ethical.
Well, get with me if you do. It's a little bit more in depth because it depends on how, you got the 510c3, they got a couple different ones. And so you want to just make sure that you're filing and do it like you would treat like any other business in terms of getting expenses. And from what I understand, depending on what type of nonprofit, some of them are not even taxed. They don't owe any taxes. So that's why I said some of them they don't even owe. So this don't apply. But I hope that answered your question.
It does. Thank you.
All right, great. Look, everybody's like, oh, that's a tax strategy to get a nonprofit. It actually is. It really is. I know somebody that has one and they're running it like a full for-profit and they just pay themselves. Real discipline. It's just you need to get some funding and you need to get with us so we can help you get some funding. All right. Let's move on. Boom. Let's talk about taking advantage of some tax credits. One of the biggest ones is this utilizing research and development. I don't know if y'all have heard about that credit. A lot of y'all need a little bit more research anyway, but let's say you want to run a marketing campaign. You want to use ads. I don't know, you want to branch out to a new market. You could go to your local, Small Business Development Center. They'll actually do research for you, and they can help you get in contact with a research consortium. Or you can hire a researcher. You do this, you can get, I'm talking about almost 5 figures knocked off your taxable income, like knocked off your tax liability. Because you're taking the time to do this, and this is the way to incentivize better businesses and whatnot. And other credits, like we already talked about, another one is renewable energy. So if you got an office space, you make that thing solar, that's a credit. Go get your electric car. Let's go say your business go and buys an electric car. Some people, they really got those problems where they got to go buy a car. This is actually a situation where I would say you need to go get something electric or, energy friendly or whatever. That's actually, they're giving a lot of credits to be able to do that. So definitely keep that in mind. Okay. Now, this is one of the biggest ones. This probably 75% of y'all. It was 75% of y'all. We already took that poll. So this is keeping accurate records. Now, this is where you want to maintain records of your income, expenses, receipts. Now, the receipts is only for y'all. When y'all come to somebody like me, a tax professional, we don't want receipts. We can't do anything with that. It's just too much paper. What we're looking for is a profit and loss statement. If y'all remind me, I have a link. Y'all can go download it. Really, I'm gonna get you I'm gonna put my information, just email me and I'll send it to you. That's gonna be the easiest thing. But I have an entire spreadsheet. You can use that as your tool this year to make sure you're keeping up with your expenses and your income. The easiest way to do that is to have to look. Well, get a bookkeeper if you don't want to do it yourself. Some of y'all like me. I love numbers. I don't mind looking at it. I like to count things. It's fun for me, whatever. Then you're going to make sure that you do it monthly or quarterly. Because when you come to me at the end of the year, that's where that anxiety confusion is, because like you're completely don't know how much you made. You don't know how much you spent. And most of us spend more than we make, which is actually a good thing in business. So you can actually, and we're hoping that you're spending to reinvest, but it's actually a good thing. But it's going to be really, really hard if you don't keep some type of record incrementally. The best thing to do is monthly. But like me, myself, I do it like quarterly because I can just take a whole day to do it. It's not going to take that long. But keep track of, for yourself, records and receipts. The receipts are for you. If you're old school and you like to keep paper receipts, you need to put it in a safety deposit box or something. You need to put it in like one of those little fire safety boxes, because if you get audited, they're going to want proof of what you're basically reporting. Most people, they're not going to get audited. Like most people are not going to get audited. It's just true. But you always want to have that proof. It's good to have that. You want to make sure, and just remind me. I'll just take down my email and I'll send it to you so you can keep some records. All right, let's talk about managing timing of income expenses as well. Really, really important, because the timing that you buy things, yes, good idea. Tammy says she's scanning her receipts. Exactly. That's coming to 2024. That's a good idea, because I'll throw a receipt away immediately. Exactly. Scan it and put it in a file. That's the best thing. But as I said, we don't want the receipts. So you need to be adding all those up and putting it into a spreadsheet with a total of how much that is. Okay. And we're talking about timing. So this is really important too. Timing a receipt of income and payment of expenses can help minimize taxable income in higher tax years. For example, consider delaying income recognition or prepaying deductible expenses before the end of the year. So that's why you see a lot of like companies, they offer grants because they need something that's going to help them lower their tax liability. Now, as believers, we give from our heart. We love to do that, but might think about offering some type of incentive, like something at the end of the year. If you pay quarterly, which that's an option. I don't know if y'all know this, you can actually pay your taxes quarterly. It's less of a headache. If you make a lot, it's worth doing. It's worth looking into. But you should also look into having some type of free service you give away. Money that you give away is grants. A lot of people, a lot of business owners paying tithes. This is going to help. That's why I say talking about timing, because you want to get it for this year. If y'all are trying to, let's say we're almost halfway through. Well, I'll say we're a quarter of the way through the year. Some of us had a really big, amazing, boom, bang, cash infused like business at the beginning of the year already. We've already made a lot of money. You need to be looking at, as a tax strategy, how you can give some of that away. Okay, and timing it before the end of the year. A lot of people are like, well, I'll do that next year. No, well, this year you needed it this year. So that's why it's so important to know how much you're making, because and to know your tax bracket. Okay, once you enter a certain tax bracket, and this is and I'm gonna tell a little sad story. This happened to a client of mine. They did exceedingly well in business. Their first year, between her and her husband, they filed jointly. Okay, they entered into the 6-figure tax bracket. Beautiful. Problem was they weren't paying any taxes the whole year. They ended up, I'm talking about after we added the expenses, the trips and everything, they ended up owing almost $10,000. Devastating. And when that April 15th date, April 15th is when that money is due. Okay, that's not when we finish. That's when it's due. So the IRS is like, we want our money right now, and they were late at giving us the information. So now they're looking at, wow, this like setting, they're like overwhelmed again, anxiety and confusion. But I don't want that to happen to any of y'all. It can happen, right? That's why we want to keep track, because once you look, if you are already making $10,000 a month or close to it, you will be owing at least 22% of that money is supposed to go to the IRS. 22%. That's a fourth. That's why I said y'all need to start getting the habit of not spending all of what you make. If you, especially, that's what I said, especially if you make 6 figures, you don't make that. If you make at least, if you make under 50K, then, you know, we got room to grow into doing those habits. But if you're already making that, like you're at that 6-figure mark, you need to go ahead, take a look at what's happening, and you need to consider, like if you're crossing over, am I saving, am I paying the IRS every quarter 22% of my income, almost a quarter? If not, baby, you're gonna be owing. And like her, she's devastated. $10,000. I mean, and I'm gonna do things legally. That's what you owe, baby. I can't help you. I can't come up with money out of thin air. And I'm thankful that we're in a community that I would hope none of y'all would do that. But you know, when you owe that much, you owe it right now, it can be, again, cause a lot of anxiety and confusion. So I don't want any of that to happen. We need to start planning a lot better. All right. And last but not least, consult with a professional. All right. This is one of the biggest things. The biggest things I'm at the end right here is you need to consult with a professional, right? Someone qualified. We have bookkeepers on our team. Like I said, we have credit professionals, business funding professionals, insurance, and tax planning and prep all on our team. And so this is how you can work with me. This is my business phone number, but that's my email. That's the best thing you can do. You can either one, really. You could text me. I'm a millennial. I don't mind getting y'all's text messages. I know some people hate it, but I really don't care. Y'all can text me. Email, that's my second best. But did y'all have any questions? I really appreciate y'all allowing me to be here. Hope I was able to give y'all some good information. Yes, no,
Thank
maybe
you
so.
for giving that information. This is Felice. I work for a government entity and we deal with employers and their taxes all the time. And it just amazes me that I see people that is, they have maybe like 25 employees or more, and their taxes are shot. And I'm like, oh my God. And our job is we have to fix their W-2s. And it's a nightmare, especially if they can't figure out where $50,000 went to, or why they off 50,000, why they off 100,000, or why they off $1 million. And the IRS, the other entity, they do not play with these people. They will lock people's businesses up. So I thank you for saying this, because I don't know how many times this January to February is our business season that we have people calling in, you know, I don't know how to do this, I don't know this, and they're crying, or they hired an agency. Can I drop the name of this agency that I suggest people not ever use? Use this lady here. This agency, these people pay, I won't say the name, they pay over the 13th to some $1,000 and they don't file these people's taxes. And when you say you do stuff legitimate, I'm like, good, thank God they have somebody that do it. Because we have accountants call in and they're messing these people's stuff up. And I'm like, they didn't pay these people money. They can't find an accountant.
Yes.
So I'm glad that you were able to do this for us.
Well, thank you. Thank you for saying that. No, it's very common, y'all, especially online, because like as a tax professional, I almost feel like I'm a healthcare professional. because you got to deliver bad news sometimes, and it's just the nature of the business. I can only run the numbers, right? I can't. That's what I'm saying. I can't make things come out thin air. That's why I'm like, hey, we have to do our due diligence. And I'll say this: if you are somebody you know you owe, you don't have to obviously self-identify, but I know there's definitely a lot of business owners that owe. I mean, they owe a lot. We have a tax resolution department as well. The tax resolution department, they literally get on the phone with the IRS and they negotiate to lower your tax liability. And it was great to see one lady show like almost $40,000 in taxes. Okay. And again, how can that happen? Because you're making over 6 figures and not paying it at all. You're not saving any money for taxes or anything. She's on almost 40,000, negotiated to get it down to about 10. Okay, big deal. So you even want to have any other questions, feel free. Like I said, text me here, email me. We actually can get you on our calendar. Since the biggest tax season just ended, we're just finishing up. We had a lot of people file extensions. That's totally perfectly fine, but our tax season doesn't end until October the 15th if you file an extension. Business owners just year round. So we're going to get into more tax planning options for you all, strategy planning, and offer the ability for you. A lot of y'all might need funding. We have an amazing program to help you get funding as well.
I have a question on something you said. So I am a member. So you saying my membership that I paid, I can claim that at the end of the year?
Correct.
And then I didn't know that, so I need to find out where I put the membership fees at. And for some of the courses that I took, I can claim those as well. But being a retreat leader, I know I can claim the travel that I go to, but what if I do I do the contracts for the retreat, but the retreat is not a sellout, but I spent money. Is that money that I can claim for my business?
Yeah, absolutely. That's what you call taking a loss. So that's a very good question. If any of y'all had to refund a customer, you lost money, all that's a write-off. Absolutely. So perfect timing to go ahead and take note of that for your records and say, hey, I took a loss here, because it's normal. All businesses take losses. Every business takes loss. If someone says they don't, they lie. Sorry, they lying. Okay. Okay, we will hope we don't have anybody here that does it, but it's the truth. So let's see. How many years can you report a loss? Okay, good question. So let's talk about how long you've been filing as a business owner. A lot of people start filing as business owners later than they should have. So like, let's say you were, like I said, doing your passion project and you get your LLC, and that first year you didn't make any money, okay? And then the second year you made like a couple thousand, and there, you're just not reporting that income. Okay, but as a business owner, it would be in your best interest. We might have to do amendments to your previous taxes so you can claim a substantial loss. Now, how many years can you report a loss? What do you mean by years? Because it's going to be only that tax year that we can report a loss for. So
let's just say for COVID. That was my question for COVID.
Oh, for COVID?
You took a loss for COVID, but I didn't have any employees. Then the next year, because COVID was still going on, you didn't, sell as many of whatever you thought.
Oh, okay. So that you would have had to file. Well, we're getting into 2024, 20. You would have to do an amendment to whatever you filed in 2020 to be able to see about getting some money back for your loss. That's when we would do an amendment. Then you can see about getting a refund. They said also, I don't know if any of y'all know, but it's almost, what they say, almost 1 million people that haven't claimed their refund from 2020. They're just hanging in the air. I would go on IRS.com and just see for 2020 if you got some money hanging out there. Who knows? Just break your girl off some if that's the truth. Just come back, throw me 100, just for being a middleman. Just let you know. But there's a lot. They say it's like 1 million people. That's a huge number. Okay, let's see. Yes, absolutely. See, somebody knows. Remember, you also have to file taxes, file sales tax on most states for products. Absolutely. That's if you already make sure that you are filing sales tax. And you can also claim property taxes. You can, if you pay any taxes, you can actually get a lot of your state taxes that you pay written off as well. A lot of y'all buying new vehicles, those properties, those state taxes can actually be written off. Any other questions?
I have a quick question. So if I wanted to invest some of my personal money into an account so I can open up a business account, is there something I can write up at the end of the year? But I'm a really small business right now. I'm still, just making my way. So if I was to take some of my personal money, like say 1,000, because I think they say $500, what you need to have a business account. If I took like say 1,000 of my own money and put it into that as a business account, is that something I can actually claim on my taxes for next year? Or and say, hey, I was invested in my business, or that doesn't work like that?
No, not really. If they're going into your actual account, then you can't take that. If they're taking that money and you're not seeing that as like a deposit in your account, then yeah, you can actually write that off. That's a business expense.
Okay. Okay, good. Thank you.
And I'm sorry, who am I speaking with?
Because Tammy.
You said who?
Tammy. My picture's not up there. Tammy.
Oh, okay. I see you, Tammy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. For some business accounts, you have to pay to like open it up. So yeah, that's a write-off.
Okay. Okay.
And see, that's what I mean. All these little things, all these little courses, these nice courses y'all getting, and workbooks and coaching and counseling sessions, and y'all need to be tallying that up. Y'all need to write it down, because I'm talking to me too. Like, I buy stuff all the time. I just forget because I like to just support people, right? But that's why it's good for us to keep track of everything, because you'll look like, man, I really spent some money, and that's a good thing if it's business related.
And the next question, if someone attend the retreat, I can advise them that that's a write-off.
Yeah, it is. It is, because it's for your business, right?
But it's a write-off for them.
Yeah, for them. Yes, it is. It is a write-off. A lot of people don't know that, because you got a network. We have a lot of fun in business. That's part of business. You can, a lot of your fun things in business can get written off. You got to remember, like all those meals. Like I said, if you like me, you like to eat, you need to start being like my sister over here and scanning them receipts in, because you probably got about $5,000 right there just on eating. Okay.
And you said something about marketing and running ads. Those can be claimed.
Absolutely.
Oh, I love this group.
And if you are, this is something y'all should all look into. I'm looking into doing, like I said, reaching out to a research consortium. Sound like a fancy term, but if you do that and they do, let's say just hire them to do a little research for you, for your market or whatever, that's a write-off. It's called the R&D, or Research and Development Tax Credit. And you can get up to, I think it's like 25,000 for doing that.
RMD?
R&D, Research and Development.
Maya, thank you so much. So my little question in there, somebody told me that if you buy clothes for a business event, you can write that off too. Is that true?
It is true. It's like, how are you, like I said, I want us to think a little bit creatively, right? We got to go to these conferences. You got to get this stuff. Like if you're doing a photo shoot, that's for marketing. That's part of the production. That is all part of the production. I had someone literally ask me, I was like, yeah, if you had to go get your hair done, nails done, everything did, like the song said, you needed to be able to, like, that's actually, you're going to get a write-off. I know I'm a little crazy, but thanks
No,
for like,
I'm making those faces. Forgive my faces. I just am
no, you're
animated
fine.
the way I am.
I know.
But I'm cracking up because I'm thinking to myself, I think so many of us are underutilizing some of these benefits because
Yeah.
I think of, I'm not a shopaholic or anything like that, but I think about, you know, how many things you just listed that I don't think I've ever put on my taxes.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. And you know, it's getting more expensive to be cute these days. You gotta get your hair done, your hair, like your nails, these outfits. You gotta get your makeup artist, your photographer. All of that is part of production of your marketing. All of that can be written off. So, like,
Okay.
literally, me right now, I'm gonna actually be speaking in well, I'm supposed to if they come out. Once I get all the information, speaking for a conference here in Houston. Your girl's about to be, I'm tallying up everything I need to do. About to be super cute, and it's gonna be right off. Yay!
I'm sorry, I have a question and I didn't want to be rude.
No, go ahead.
Take over talk. Okay, so I'm not sure if this is in your lane, but are you familiar with the BOI report?
Yes,
That's
I am.
okay. So, is that something that we could do our own, or do we need a professional to get that done?
Okay, y'all can 100% get that done. Do yourself. Do not
Okay.
let somebody make you pay to do that.
Okay.
Do y'all have a link for that? Let me see. Let me drop this. This is something you need to do immediately too, because I don't know what's going on foreignly, but they're like very serious about getting this, doing your BOI, because they're like, you can owe like $100
What
per
is a
month or
BOI? I don't even
something.
know what that is.
Thank you. Can you explain that?
Yes, let me get let's get a link real quick. Here we go. This is what you call your beneficial ownership information. Basically, they're trying to figure out who owns this business and who's actually, here we go. I got it for y'all. Who owns this business? Who controls the business? Who's actually benefiting from it? Because they're trying to crack down from, it's basically anti-money laundering. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to stop they're trying to really, it's an anti-money laundering kind of campaign. I just dropped the link in the chat. It's a beneficial ownership information. So there's a lot of people, they'll buy all these businesses and it protects them obviously legally from their liability in case they get sued, but the government's trying to make sure they know who's behind it. So, because a lot of people they just might make this entity, they don't really connect it to anything. And so it's just screaming like money laundering to the government. So they want you to do this. You need to do this as soon as possible because I think the penalty is, it was January. Okay, so if you have had a business before 2024, you have, I think, you need to go ahead and file. I think there's a deadline. I forgot the deadline, but
It's January of
January
2025.
the 1st.
Yeah.
That's when they started. There is a deadline. Oh, let's
It's
see.
fairly short, right, Kamaya? Takes about 5 minutes.
Exactly. Doesn't take
Yeah.
long, but they are penalizing people like it's like $100 a month, I believe, if you forget to do it. If you're a new LLC, yeah, they're like, for this year, they're like, no, you need to be doing that while you're getting your EIN and all that, because they're gonna start penalizing you almost automatically. If you've been in business a little longer, they're gonna give you a little bit more longer time. If you're a new LLC, they're like, stop playing games with us. We need to know who you are. Any other information? Any questions?
Well, Kamaya, thank you so much. We try to start and end on time, but if anybody has any questions, I know that you can contact our speakers And we generally kind of just hang out a little bit after the session. But Kamaya and LaShonda, I think this was just so much more than we bargained for. This was a lot of good information. And thank you. I just want to make sure, a couple of things in the chat. So Dr. Paula says, remember, you also have to file state taxes, sales tax in most states on products.
Yep.
Make sure we didn't miss anyone. Okay, Kamaya's email is there in the chat as well. Okay, and then the link for the BOI, Kamaya dropped that as well. And then nice show. I always say nice show, but I'm understanding that it's Nicole, was saying apparently, okay, someone tried to claim their wardrobe and wigs and they denied it. I guess the IRS denied it because of not being able to show she only used it for performances. So yeah, so go ahead, Kamaya.
Right.
Okay.
No, I was gonna say, no, that's for real. That's why I was saying, for the production of y'all's advertising campaigns and marketing, if you're just, and you're talking about performances, that's a little iffy, right? It depends on, like I said, it's how they're being categorized and what they're doing. If you're just being cute, man, they're not gonna write that. That's why I said, if this is part of what you need, yes. Absolutely.
I think that is good. I was always a little leery about it, but I think that what you said, just kind of the standard of my using this to further my business, is something to consider. So again, thank you, Kamaya, for a lot of really good information. We are in Miami and Houston, so I'm praying that we're able to have you back, maybe for an in-person meetup, because I think this is one of those things that you can't quite fit into 45 minutes. I think we need like a 2-hour on each topic. But ladies, I thank you all so much for joining us on a Friday. You know, Kamaya opened up with this, and I didn't want to just brush past it, but you know, there comes a point where some of us get so much more serious about business. It's our bread and butter. And so for you to choose to spend a Friday evening, 2.5 hours, to do deep dives into some of these areas, I think says a lot. And my prayer and MCWEN's prayer is that God honors that. I think this is evidence of what diligence looks like when we're trying to be good stewards of the purpose that he put on our hearts. So again, thank you for hanging out with us this evening. Final announcements. If you want to plug in with MCWEN a little bit more, these are some ways. So attend a virtual event. Our next one is in, what's this, April, May, June. So please be on the lookout for the speaker and the topic for June. You can follow us and engage on socials, especially our Facebook group. That's how we stay connected in between our events. You can write an article and of course become a member if you choose. This is the code one last time, 30% off, and it expires Sunday night. So all of this will be free to you, including the annual conference in August if you choose to engage further. These are our social handles. We're pretty active on all of these platforms. We're also now on Threads, we're on Pinterest, we have our YouTube page going. So you can plug in anywhere that you see fit. And then feedback. So we love feedback. We love constructive criticism. We have tough skin, we can take it. And that's the only way we get better. So if you enjoy the topics, if you enjoy the speakers, if you'd like us to invite them back, we welcome great feedback as well. Anything that can be improved, we welcome that again as well. And then don't forget Small Business Expo if you're near the Charlotte area. If you are not, then in any of the 14 out of 15 cities, we have those meetups. And Kamaya, you had a final thing. And LaShonda, did you have a final thought or word? Kamaya, you had something?
Yeah, I was just trying to get that QR code for the membership. You sped past that a little quick. I was like, wait a minute. I was like,
so the QR code was for feedback, but the coupon code is here at the bottom of the screen, April 24.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And I don't know if LaShonda is still with us, if you had any kind of final thoughts.
She's gone.
Okay, she's gone. Okay. Well, again, thank you, ladies, so much. As usual, we're staying and hanging out in the chat. Feel free to drop your social handles. If you have a question for me, any of the speakers, Lindsay, Zoe, please let us know. We'll hang out for a few minutes longer. And last but not least, Lindsay, did you have anything, any final thoughts?
I don't. I just want to thank Kamaya for all of that information, and LaShonda too were so helpful, especially going into since we're in Q2. It's good to know and to prep for next year.
Yeah, it goes by so fast. And Zoe, I know you all hear from Zoe a lot, get a lot of emails from Zoe. So Zoe, thank you so much for just making sure that we stay on top of all communications. But thank you, ladies. And I'll just close us out in prayer real quick. Father, we thank you. Thank you for the opportunity again, God. We don't take it for granted, God. Thank you for LaShonda and Kamaya and them lending their gifts to this community and them supporting women in this way, God. Thank you for your illustration in the word that we are not to hoard the information or the resources that we have, but we are to be generous with it. And I thank you that they have modeled that for us, God. And for every woman here that is practicing and modeling that through their business, God, we pray that you would honor it, that you would bless it, God. Every seed that they sow, God, Father, we pray that you would allow them to reap generously, God. We pray for more creative ideas. We pray for favor, where our abilities stop, God. We pray for favor, God, with the investors, the funders, the attendees, God, whatever we stand in need of, just peace and creativity, God, to do this work and to do it freely, God. Thank you for what you're doing. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. God bless you, ladies. And like I said, we're here. Drop in the chat, socials, and feel free to network a little bit longer.
Can't see my people.
And Jana, you still, and Jana, you still, you're on mute. It's Paula.
Oh, okay. Did you say my name?
I did. You were supposed to send me information. You promised at the last session.
I did promise at the last session. Let me think about this, Dr. Paul. I don't want to commit to another date to follow up with you, but let me think through some things.
Okay, no worries. Bye.
Okay.
And I am grateful that I made it here. Yesterday's gone and a new day has appeared. And I am grateful that I made it here. Blessings gonna find me here. Oh yeah. Favor gonna find me here. Oh yeah. I mean, say money gonna find me here. Blessings gonna find me. Oh na 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 na. Something good gonna happen in this year, and I am grateful that I made it here. Yesterday's gone and a new day has appeared, and I am grateful that I made it here. Blessings gonna find me here. Oh yeah. Favor gonna find me, yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, say money gonna find me, yeah. Blessings gonna find me, yeah. Oh na 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 na. Something good gonna happen in this year, and I am grateful that I made it here.
Okay, I can network.
Yesterday's gone and a new day has appeared.
I'm a member, and when I log in, I always get like when I'm finna sign up, it doesn't show me the member, it shows me the fee. What am I doing wrong? I can't hear you.
I was enjoying the song a little bit too much.
All right. I'm supposed to wait till the song ends. Okay, tell me.
No, it's okay. So I'm gonna stop the recording here. Barbara, do you mind doing a screen share? I can show you